this video, we will build a MERN ToDo application using MERN stack and Tailwind CSS for styling. Let's create two folders, one for backend and the other one for frontend. Okay, and all the dependencies related to backend, we should install them in the root because later it will be easier for us to deploy our application. So now in the root, I will write npm init -y. So as you can see here, we have our package.json file. Okay. Now inside backend, let's create a file called server.js. I like to call it server.js. Some people call it app.js or index.js. It's really up to you. Okay. And here I want to use Express and other dependencies. But before that, we need to install them. So let's clear our terminal. And here let's write npm install Express. It's a web framework that allows us to work with Node.js easily. Then let's install Mongoose. It will allow us to work with MongoDB. Then course to enable communication between our frontend and backend. And now let's write .env. We need to use it to get access to environment variables. You'll understand why we use each of these as we keep going in this tutorial. So now I will press enter and I want to install them. So as you can see, now we have node modules and package log.json files. Okay. So as I said, here I want to use Express from Express, but with current setup, I need to use an older syntax like this, like const express require express. But I don't want to use the syntax. I want to be able to import express from express. But right now it will not work. We need to make some changes. So inside package.json, under these scripts, we can say the following. We can say type. And here, instead of common.js, we want to use module. So let's save it. And now we'll be able to use this syntax without any problems. Here, let's create an instance of our application. Let's say app will be express. Okay. Now we want to listen to a port. Let's say that it will be 5000. And here, let's say console.log server started at HTTP localhost 5000. Okay, so let's save it. And now I'll open my terminal and I will clear it first. And now I will go to backend, and from here I will write node server.js. And as you can see, we have this server started at HTTP localhost 5000. So I opened it, and as you can see, we have this cannot get and this slash. So let's show some text instead of this. We can do it very easily. So under this app, let's do the following. Let's say that at the root, we want to show the following. Let's say request. Let's say request response. And here, as our response, let's send server is ready. So now I will save it, and here, when I refresh, as you can see, we don't see the changes we made even if I refresh. It is because we need to restart our server. So let's restart our server. So let's write node server.js, and now our server is restarted. Now if I refresh, you see that our server is ready. Okay. So if we write something here, for example, let's say server started, and let's write something like this. As you can see in our terminal, we don't immediately see the changes we made. So we constantly need to restart our server, which is not convenient. To handle this, we can install NodeMon. So NodeMon is a tool that will help us deal with it. So it will automatically look for changes and it will update everything according to our changes. Okay, now I will stop our server. Okay, I will clear it. And now I will write npm install NodeMon, but I want to install it as web dependencies. So now I will open this package.json, and here, as you can see, we have these dependencies, but we don't have any dev dependencies. So now I will press enter. And now in our dev dependencies, you can see NodeMon. So now at this point, we can come to this package.json and we can create a script. Instead of manually typing NodeMon server.js every single time, we can create a script like this. We can say dev, and then we can write the following. We can say NodeMon, and then the path to our server.js file. So let's save it. And now if I write npm run dev, you can see that now we see how our NodeMon works. So NodeMon is working properly. And now if I remove these letters and save the file, you can see that restarting due to changes. So it means that now our development became a bit easier. Okay, so now I think that it's time for us to go to MongoDB and get our connection string. So let's do it. So here, click sign in. So go to MongoDB and sign in. But if you don't have an account, you need to sign up first. So I'm already signed in, and now I will create a new project. So I will click new project, and here I will write MERN ToDo app. Then let's click next. Here we also need to click create project. Here we need to click this button. So we will choose this free option, and this name will stay as cluster 0. So let's click create deployment. So from here we need to copy our password, and after that we can click create database user. Okay, let's click proceed to connect. So in the root, let's create a file called .env. Here we will save our sensitive data. So let's write the following. Let's say Mongo URI. So here you can copy it. So let's copy it. Here we need to click this done button. So we need to paste it here, and here we can define a name for our database. Here I will write to-dos, like our tasks, and we need to replace this database password with our actual password that we just copied. Okay, so I did it. Okay, so I have done it, and let's see what we have in our MongoDB. Now if we click clusters, and then if we click browse collections, you can see that we don't have anything here. So let's keep coding. So inside backend folder, let's create a new folder called config. And inside this, we can create a file called db.js. And here we want to establish a connection with our database. So for that, we need to import Mongoose from Mongoose. And here, let's say export const. And then the name of our function, let's say connect db. It will be asynchronous. Let's say try and catch blocks. Okay, so here let's say const connection await, and then mongoose.connect, and then we need to get access to our environment variable called Mongo URI, but right now we won't be able to do that. So inside server I can come here, so I need to come here and say import.env from .env, and here I can say .env and call this function, this config. So let's save it, and here even if I do it in this server.js file, it will have effect to this db.js file. So now we can get access to this Mongo URI. Okay, so let's continue, and to make sure that we have done everything correctly, to make sure that the connection has been established, we can console log the following. We can say MongoDB connected, and then we can say con.connection.host. And in case of any errors, we can also console log our error, and then we can say process.exit with 1. It means that there will be an exit. It means that it was unsuccessful. So basically by writing this, we just say that in case of any errors, we want to terminate the process. Okay, so let's save it. And now inside this server.js, we can use our function called connectDB, and here we can use it. Let's say connectDB, and make sure to write .js here, otherwise we will have some errors. So let's save it, and as you can see, we have this MongoDB connected. It means that we have connected correctly, and now we can keep going. We can create a schema for our to-do. Basically, it tells us what kind of properties we want our to-do to have. So inside Backend, let's create a folder called models. And here we can create a file called todo.model.js. There are lots of conventions when it comes to naming files inside this models folder, but I prefer to go with this one. So here we need to import mongoose from mongoose, and let's create our to-do schema. So let's say to-do schema will be equal to new mongoose.schema. So let's say that we will have text, so it will be actually the task that we want to do. For example, learn English, read a book, things like that. I think you get it. So we want its type to be string, and it will be required, so we will write required to be true. Okay. And then we want to know whether our task was completed or not. So let's write completed. And its type will be Boolean. And by default, all our tasks will be false, meaning that by default, they're all uncompleted. And then, of course, we want to know when a certain task was created. For that, we can use timestamps. So let's write timestamps to be true. So by doing this, we will know what time a certain task was created. So this is our schema. Each of our to-dos will have a text, and then we will know whether it is completed or not. And of course, we will know a time when it was created. So let's write const to-do. To be able to use it, we need to write the following. So let's say mongoose.model, and here we want it to be to-do, and let's import it. Okay, so let's save it. So our schema is ready. Now inside this backend folder, we can create one more folder called routes. And inside we can say todo.route.js. So basically here we will have our functions for adding, updating, deleting, and getting our to-dos. So we will have operations for CRUD, create, read, update, delete operations. So let's import Express from Express. And then we want to use our to-do, which we have just created, our schema. So let's import to-do. And don't forget to write .js here. Okay. So here we need to use const router. So let's say express.router. So we need to use this router to handle different requests for CRUD operations. So here let's say router.get, and at the root we want to get all of our to-dos. Okay, so I will write a comment here. I will say get all to-dos. Here let's say that it will be asynchronous request and response. It will be our try and catch block. And here let's say const to-dos will be equal to this await to-do dot find. So by doing this, we will find all of our to-dos in our MongoDB collection. And then we want to say response.json to-dos. So we want to get all of our to-dos and then send a JSON response back to the client. And then in our frontend, we will be able to get access to these to-dos, and then we will be able to display them on the page. So by doing this, we send a JSON response to the client. In case of some errors, we can do the following. We can say res.status. Let's say that it will be 500, meaning that it is internal server error. And here we can say JSON and a message. And in our message, we can simply show error.message. So we have done our route to get all the to-dos. Now we need a route to post, to add a new to-do. So let's say add a new to-do. So let's say router dot post, and then it will be in our route. It will be asynchronous request response, and here we need to say const to do will be equal to new to do, and here we will get it. So let's say text, and here we will get it from request.body.text. It means that we will get access to this request.body.text from our request. It means that from our client. So by saying this, to do, what we will type in an input field will come here and will be equal to this text. And then, so the request will be sent by our client. So by a client, we will get it from him and assign to this text. Okay. And then let's say try and catch. So inside try, we want to say that we want to say const new to do will be equal to this await to do dot save. So we want to use this, and then we say await to do dot save. So it will be saved in our MongoDB collection. Let's say that res status will be 201, meaning that everything is successful. And then in our JSON, we can show this new to do. In case of some errors, we can do the following. We can say res.status, and it will be 400, meaning that it is a bad request. And for our message, we can say error.message. So we already have two routes, one to get all to-dos and the other one to post a to-do. So the main thing here is this text that comes to us from our client, then we get access to it, create a new variable, and then we save it in our MongoDB collection. Okay, now we need a route to be able to update. Either we want to update a text itself or whether it was completed or not. So let's say update a to-do. So let's say text and or completed. Okay, so let's say router dot patch method, and here we need to say ID. If previously we didn't use any ID, here we need to use ID. Why? Because here it doesn't matter whether it has ID or not, we just want to show all to-dos. Here it also doesn't matter because it is a freshly created one, right? But here, in order to find the right one, we need to be able to identify it. So that's why we need to write an ID here to be able to update exactly that to-do that we want. Again, it will be asynchronous. Here we need to write a comma. Okay, so let's say that it will be request and response. So let's do the following. Let's say const to-do. We need to find it first. So let's say await, then our model, and we need to say find by ID, and then request dot params dot ID. Again, this ID will come here from our client. So it will come from our client. Okay, then if we can't find a to-do, so if there is no to-do, we can just return. Okay, so we just do return. It means that there is no to-do to update. And here we can return a message. So let's say status will be 404, meaning that it wasn't found. And then our JSON. So let's say message. And inside this message, we can say to-do not found. Okay. And then we need to update fields if they are provided in the request body. So let's do the following. Let's say if request.body.text is not equal to undefined, it means that we got a text, so we want to update it. So we can say the following. We can say to-do.text is equal to this request.body.text. So if inside this request.body.text it isn't equal to this undefined, we actually want to update to-do's text to this request.body.text. And the same we need to do for whether it is completed or not. So let's do it. Okay, and here we can say const updated to-do with all the new fields, and here we can say await to-do.save, and we can show our updated to-do. So here we can say updated to-do. That's it. So if inside this request.body we have fields to update, we update them, and if there is no to-do to update, we just say that to-do not found. And in case of some errors, we can say error. And in case of some errors, we can say error, and we can say res.status. Again, it can be 400. And for our JSON, we can say message.error.message. So we created one more route, but in this case for updating. Okay, and now the last route that we need to create. Let's say router.delete. So it will be for deleting. Again, we need to specify a post, we need to specify a to-do that we want to delete. So that's why we need to use ID here as well. Here we need to say request and then response. Here let's say try and catch block. Here we immediately can say await, to do, and then this function find by ID and delete. And again, we get this ID from our client, so we need to say request.params.id. And now await expressions are only allowed within asynchronous functions, so we shouldn't forget to write asynchronous here. Okay, and in our response we can say message to do deleted. Here we can say res.status 500, and for our message let's say error.message. Okay, and let's write a comment here as well. Let's follow our steps correctly. So by doing this, we defined our routes. So now let's export our router. So let's say export default router, and let's save it. So inside this server.js, we can use our routes by saying use, and then API to-dos, and here we need to say to-do routes. So let's import to-do routes. So let's import to-do routes from routes. Okay, so let's save it. So you may wonder why we wrote API to-dos. It is just a simple convention that we can stick to. So that's why we wrote API to-dos. You can modify it according to your needs, but I prefer to go with this one. So in this case, as you can see here, we have API to-dos. And then, for example, when we work with deleting, for example, it will be like this. It will be like this. When we work with updating, it will also be like this. So it will be like our path. And when we create a to-do and when we fetch a to-do, our to-dos will be like this because we don't need a specific to-do. So I think that it's clear and it's just a convention that we stick to. And now it's time for us to work with Frontend, but before going to do that, now I can delete this because we don't need it anymore. And here I can say app.use express.json. So by doing this, we'll be able to parse incoming request bodies that contain JSON data. For example, let's say that there is a post request where a client sends JSON data to the server with name properties, for example, John Doe, and with email. And without app.use express.json, Express wouldn't be able to parse this JSON data, and request.body would be undefined. But by writing this, we can prevent that, and JSON data will be available as a JavaScript object inside request.body. So let's save it. And now inside this frontend, we need to use React, Tailwind CSS. Okay, so now let's open our terminal and create one more terminal. And here, let's go to frontend. And all the dependencies related to frontend will be installed inside that frontend folder. So now we are in frontend folder. So let's write npm create vit at latest dot. So here let's choose React and then JavaScript. So as you can see, now this frontend folders has all these files and folders. So let's write npm install. Now it's time to connect Tailwind CSS to our project, so let's visit the official website of Tailwind CSS. So here we need to click Get Started, and then we need to copy this command and paste it in our terminal. Now we need to make some changes in our vid.config.js files, so let's import this. And inside this vid.config.js file, we can come here and paste it here. And inside this plugins array, we need to write Tailwind CSS, and we need to save this file. Then we need to copy this, import Tailwind CSS, and we can put it inside this index.css file, but I will delete everything here. So let's save it. And now we can write npm run dev. Okay, so let's delete all the unnecessary files. And for now, let's close everything that we don't use. So we can delete app.css. And inside app.jsx, we can delete all these things. Okay, now I will split my screen so that you'll be able to see everything. So here, let's start with our layout. Let's create a div. And for now, here I will say task manager. So let's save it. So to this div, let's say that min height will be screen, so it will take the whole screen. Let's say that background color will be gradient, so we will say that it will be to bottom right, and we need to provide some colors. So let's say it will be from gray 50 to gray 100. So be very attentive now. I will save the file, and the color, the background color changed a little. Maybe if I make it to be 500, you will see it better. So now you see that you definitely see it, but I will change it back to be 100. Okay, let's say that it will be flex and items will be center. And let's say that justify will be center, and add some paddings. Let's say that it will be 4 from all sides. Okay, now I will wrap this h1 tag into one more div. And to this div, I will say that background color will be white. So you may see it. I see it, but you may not see it. Okay. And let's say that it will be rounded. So it means that border radius will be 2xl. So border radius will be 16 pixels. Let's add some shadow. It will be xl. And let's say that width will be full, max width will be large or 512 pixels. And let's add padding, that will be 8. So I will save it. And now you see it better. Now I will wrap this h1 tag into one more div. Okay, but for now I will not apply any styles to this div, only for now. So let's start styling this task manager. Let's say that text will be 4xl, font will be bold, text will be gray 800, and let's add some margin bottom. Okay, so under this div, let's create a form, and inside this form we want to have an input, type will be text, and for value we want to write new to do. It means that we need to create a state. So let's write const new to do, set new to do. We need to import use state. By default it will be an empty string, so let's save it. So here we have our input, and its value will be new to do. And on change, we want to use this event.target object, and here we can see set new to do, event.target and value. So whatever we type here will be set to this new to do. For placeholder, let's write the following. Let's say what needs to be done, and this question mark. Now I will remove it and we can see it. Actually, at this point, I think that I shouldn't wrap this h1 tag in this div, so I can remove this div. And let's save it. As you can see, nothing has changed. And instead of this margin bottom to be 2, I wanted to change it to 8, for example. So let's see what we'll have. Now it looks a bit better. So let's keep styling. So here, let's style this input. Let's add the following styles. Let's say that outline will be none. So if you don't know what is outline, now when we focus this input, you can see that this bad border, it is outline. So now if I save it, and we no longer see it. Okay, let's add some padding. Let's say that horizontally it will be 3, vertically it will be 2. Let's say that text will be gray 700. So what I will type here, its color is 700, gray 700. Okay, and for placeholder, let's see, placeholder, its color will be gray 400. Now it's a bit different, as you can see. And of course, we want this input to be required. Okay. Now let's create a button here. Let's say it will be add task. Okay. Let's style this button. Let's say that background color will be blue 500. On hover, it will be darker. It will be 600. Text will be white. Let's add some padding. Let's make it to be rounded. It will be 6 pixels. And let's say that font will be medium. And we want it to be cursor pointer. So let's save it. Okay, it looks good. So now to this form, let's add the following styles. Let's say that it will be flex and items will be center. And let's add some gap. Okay, but as you can see now, this button isn't in the right, it's right here. We can change that behavior by writing flex1 to this input. So if we hover over, you see that it's flex1. It means that it's gonna take all the available space, and as you can see, there is some available space. So let's save it, and now it is in the right and it looks good. So simply by writing this, we made this input to take all the available space, and you saw that there was some available space. Okay, so let's keep styling our form. Let's add some shadow. And let's add border. And border color will be gray 200 and some padding. And let's make it to be rounded. So it will be 8 pixels. Now it looks really cool. So let's create some functions to be able to add a task. So here I will create a new function called add to do. It will be asynchronous, and for that we need Axios. And moreover, for styling purposes, we will need React icons. So now I will remove it, I will save it, and now I will stop our server. So I stopped my server, and now we need to install Axios. So let's do it. And we also need to install React icons. And here we go. Now we can create our function. So let's say add to do. As I said, it will be asynchronous. And to prevent the default behavior when a page refreshes after submitting a form, we need to get access to this event object. And here we can say prevent default behavior. So let's save it. And then if new to do is empty, then we want to return. Moreover, we need to use this trim function to remove some spaces. For example, there can be this situation. For example, we write this, and to remove this space, we use this trim function. So if a user tries to add an empty task, we will not allow him to do it by writing this. So let's say the following. Let's say try and catch. Here we can say const response. It will be await. Here we need to use Axios, but we need to import it first. So let's say import Axios from Axios. And now we can use it. It will be a post method. And here we need to provide our path. It will be API to-dos. And then our text. It will be this new to-do. So as you can see, here I wrote this API to-dos, but it will not work. We need to make some changes in our vid.config.js file. So you may wonder why I said that this will not work. It is because we didn't provide the full path. So if we wrote here something like this, HTTP localhost 5000, and then of course it would work, but I don't want to see this HTTP localhost 5000. I want everything to be modern and according to the best practices. So I will remove it and I will put it inside this vid.config.js. So we will handle that here. So here let's say server, then proxy, and then API. So whenever we write API, our target will be this HTTP localhost 5000. And here I need to write this colon. So why localhost 5000? It is because on this port our server is running. It means that by doing this, we tell our config to imagine that localhost is written before this API. Okay? It means that this will always be a prefix when we write this API. Even though we don't see it, it will be like that. So by doing that now, we will be able to post a task. Okay? Then after a response, after a successful response, we want to take our response data and store it somewhere. So let's create a new state called to-dos, and let's say set to-dos, and by default it will be an empty array where we want to store our to-dos and display them here. So if this response succeeds, okay, then we want to say set to-dos, and here we want to keep all the previous to-dos and add this from response.data. Okay, and we want to set our new to-do to be an empty string again. So if I write something like this and then I click add task, I want this to be empty again. Okay, and here in case of some errors we can say error adding to-do, and here we can show our error. Okay, so now we need to use this function. So when we click this button, actually we shouldn't use it here. We need to make its type to be submit, and when we submit this form on submit, we want to use that add to do function. Okay, so let's test it. Now I will open my cluster. Before testing, I will open my MongoDB cluster. So as you can see, it is empty. So let's refresh it. So as you can see, here we created our database. It's the name of our database, and these are our to-dos. You may wonder why it is this way. So the first to-dos is for the name that we configured in our .env file. I wrote the to-dos, so that's why the database name is to-dos. And for this one, for this collection, why it is this way? When we created a schema inside this models, so we created a schema here, as you can see, but we called it to be to-do. But MongoDB handled it to be lowercase, so it made it to be lowercase, and MongoDB also added s. So that's why the first to-dos is for the name of our database, and the second to-dos happened because of the way MongoDB handles it. So it makes this one singular to-do to be lowercase. MongoDB makes it to be plural. So that's why. I think it's clear. Okay, so as you can see, it is empty. So let's try to add a task. So let's say read a book. So I will click add task. As you can see, it is empty. And now if I refresh our page, you can see that we have our task. So it means that now we can add a task, which is great. So as I said, we want to show our tasks under this form. So under this form, let's come here and do the following. Let's create a div. And here, based on to-do's length, we want to show either one thing or the other one. So if to-do's length is equal to 0, if there are no to-dos, we want to show this div. For now, let's make it to be empty. And if that's not the case, we want to show this div. Okay, but we already know that to-do's length is equal to 1, right? So here we can take our to-dos. We can say .map. Actually, I will make our screen to be... Actually, I will make this screen to be smaller so that you'll be able to see everything better. Okay, so we can say to-dos.map, and it will be to-do. So here let's create a div. And each div should have a unique key. Since each of our to-dos contains a unique ID, we can use it here. So as you can see, each of our to-dos has this ID, text, completed, created, updated, and __ version. Okay, so let's use this ID. So here I will say to-do ._ID, and here let's show to-do.text. So I will save it, and as you can see, we have our to-do. So let's add one more task. Let's say make a presentation. So let's click add task, and it is right here. So it is dynamically displayed here. Okay, so let's add some styles and let's add some icons for updating and deleting a to-do. I will just paste them here at the top, not to waste your time. So here they are. Okay. So let's come to this div. So as you can see that after refreshing, we no longer see our to-dos. It is okay. We will handle that using useEffect. So now what I suggest is to create a function called fetch to-dos. So let's do it. So let's see, const fetch to-dos. And it will be asynchronous. And here we need to use try and catch blocks. Here let's say const response. Here we can say await Axios.get our path API to-dos. And here we need to say set to-dos to be equal to this response dot data. And in case of some errors, let's say console log error fetching to-dos and error. Okay, so let's save it. Okay, so now let's use useEffect hook. And we want to call this function every time our component mounts. So let's save it. And now, after saving this file, we should see our tasks right under this form. So here they are. And now if I refresh the page, they're still here. So that's what we want to have. Now I want to console log our response.data so that you'll be able to better understand the structure that we get from our server, but you already know it. But anyway, I want you to see it, so I will save it. So let's open our console. So I will refresh the page, and here they are. In our database we have two tasks. So this first one completed false, created at text, and when it was updated. So completed and text. And for the second one, it says make a presentation. So that's it. So let's create two more states. We need to know whether a to-do is being edited. So we need to say editing to-do, set editing to-do. And it should be equal to this use state, and by default it will be null. So by default our tasks are not being edited, but if they are edited we need a new edited text. So let's say edited text, set edited text. By default it will be empty. So let's save it. So now what I suggest to do is to remove this to-do.text and instead to do the following. So if editing to-do is equal to to-do._id, then we want to show something. If it's not the case, we want to show another thing. So what does it mean? When we will click a certain task, and if we click an icon responsible for editing, we will set that ID to be this. We will set that ID to be equal to this setIting.id. And since this dot map can know whether this editing to do is equal to this current to-do._id, based on that it can know if the current task is being edited. If the current task is being edited, we want to show something here. If not, we will just show something here. So again, to-dos.map has access to all the to-dos, and it knows each to-dos ID. And when we click an icon responsible for editing, we will take that ID from this reader book, and we will take that ID and we will set it to be equal to this editing to do. And then of course todos.map will understand which task is being edited. So if editing to do is equal to this current todo._id, it will show the content of this div. If not, it will show the content of this div. So I think that it is clear to you. It can be tricky a little, but if you try to understand it, you will understand it, I think. Yeah. So if that's the case, if editing to do is equal to this todo._id, then we want to show this input, and its value will be that edited text. And on change, we want to change that to what we type. So let's see, set edited text event.target.value. So very soon we will add some icons responsible for editing and deleting. Okay, so here inside this div, let's create a div which will contain those icons responsible for editing and deleting. So here I will create a button, and here I will take this icon and I want to use it here. So let's save it. And as you can see, now we have only these icons. We just need to show our to-dos as well. And now we have our to-dos. Okay, we will make a layout a bit later. Now we just need to control this behavior. And also we need to show that deleting icon. So let's take it. It will be this. So let's save it. And now we have our icons. So when we click this button, we need to set editing to do equal to this todo.id. So let's create a function called start editing. So let's see, start editing. And here we will pass a to do here. And we need to say set editing to do to be this todo._id, and set edited text to be equal to this todo.text. So let's take this function, and when we click this button, we want to use this function, and moreover, we want to pass here a to do. We can get access to this to do because we inside this todos.map. So when I click this, we will pass a whole to do to this start editing function. Then it will set editing to do to be equal to this ID and to this text, which it will get from this to do. And then one of these will be equal. And then one of these will have this when editing to do is equal to todo._id, and we will see this rather than this. So let's save it and you will understand it better. Now I will click this, and as you can see, we have an input. So why don't we see these icons? It is because we can see them only when editing to do is not equal to this todo._id. But if editing to do is equal to this todo._id, we want to see this input. And as you can see, this input already has this value, edited text. Okay, so that's it. Now we need to add more icons. For example, I want to cancel this updating, or I want to confirm this updating. So here we also need to show these icons. So let's do it. It will be this close for canceling. So let's create a button. So here it is. And for confirming, we want to use this one. Let's actually create a button. Okay. So now when I click this, I want to cancel editing. So I can do it very easily. So I need to say that on click, I want set editing to do to be null. So let's try to do it. And as you can see, we no longer edit this task. So that's how it works. So when I, for example, click this, I can edit it, and then I can either confirm it or cancel my decision. So that's it. So now let's add some styles to make everything look better, and then we will hook the correct functions to the right places, and we will keep going. So now let's make everything look better. So here I want to wrap these buttons in a div. Okay, and I want them to be flags, and let's add some gap between them to be 2. Let's save it. We can see it because we need to do something like this. Yes, and now we can see it. So to this div, which contains this input and this div, let's add the following styles. Let's say that it will be flex, items will be center, and let's add some gap. Okay, to this input, let's add the following styles. Let's say that padding will be 3, border will be 1, and border color will be gray 200. So it is here. And as you remember from this, when we made this input to take the whole available space, we can do the following here. We can say that it will be flex 1, and now it will shift these icons to the right. So let's save it, and as you can see, that's happened. Let's say that it will be rounded. Let's say that we don't want to have this outline, so let's say outline will be none. Okay, let's say that on focus we want our ring to be 2, and we want our focus, our ring focus, to be blue 300. So let's save it, and now when we focus, you can see that we have this blue outline. Let's make that text will be gray 700, and add some shadow. Okay, now if I cancel it, the styles are gone, because these styles are only when we edit a certain task. So let's add some styles to this button. Let's say that padding horizontally will be 4, vertically it will be 2. Then let's say that background color will be green 500, text will be white, rounded will be large. On hover, we want background color to be a bit darker, 600, and we want to say cursor pointer. Okay, it looks good. So let's take all these styles and apply it to this button. But in this case, we want to change the color to gray 200 and gray 300. So let's save it. Okay, and we want text to be gray 700, and now it looks nice. So now I will wrap these buttons in this div. And I will take these styles and apply them here. Okay. So to this div, actually, let's wrap this text into a span tag. Okay. Now to this div, I want to say the following styles. I want to say that it will be flex, items will be center, and justify will be between. Okay, so let's style this button. Let's see that padding will be 2, text will be blue 500. On hover, we want text to be blue 700, and we want it to be rounded large. So let's save it. Okay, on hover, it is a bit darker. And let's say that on hover, we want background color to be blue 50 with some duration of 200. Okay, it looks good. I will copy these styles and apply them to this button, but I will change the color to be red, and yeah, it will be red everywhere. Okay, it looks good. So let's style our task. So let's say that text will be gray 800 and font will be medium. Good, it looks good. And here before this span, we also want to show one more button. And here we also want to use this icon. So let's put it here. Okay, so now let's take these two and put them into a separate div. So let's save it. And let's add some styles to them. Let's see, flex, items will be center, and some gap between them. Let's say it will be 4. Okay, it looks good. So here we should show this icon only if ToDo is completed. So let's say if ToDo is completed, only then we want to show this icon. Otherwise, we will not show it. And based on that, we want to apply some styles. So let's see, class name, we need to use backsticks and curly braces. So here let's say the following. Let's say that height will be 6, width will be 6, and let's add some border. And as you can see, we have a square. We want it to be rounded full. So now it is a circle. And now I will make it to be like this, and we will see what we have. So as you can see, we have our icon here, but I want it to be centered. So I will say flex, items center, and justify center. And it is centered. And if ToDo is completed, I want to add the following styles. I want to say that background color will be green 500 and border will be green 500. Otherwise, I want to say border will be gray 300, and on hover it will be border blue 400. So now I will remove this and I will save it. So as you can see on hover, it has these styles, and let's pretend that our ToDo is completed and it has these styles. Okay, now it looks like what we want. So I will remove these. Okay, so to this div, I will say margin top will be 4. Okay. And to this div, I will say flex direction will be column, and gap will be 4. Now it looks better. And let's center this task manager. Let's see that text will be center. Okay, so now we want to be able to edit. So let's say that I will say read a Spanish book, and now I want to save it, or I want to cancel it. So if I cancel it, it is gone, and it is gone here as well. So I want to say read a Spanish book, and I want to update it. So let's create a function to update. So first of all, I will create a function for that. Let's say const, let's say save edit. Okay, and it will be asynchronous, and it will accept an ID. So let's use try and catch block. Okay, so here let's say const response will be equal to this await Axios, then our method, and here we need to use backsticks and API ToDo's and our ID, and then our text with which we want to update our task. So let's say edited text. Then we want to update our UI as well. So let's say set ToDo's dot-map. So we need to update our UI. Then ToDo dot underscore ID. If it is equal to this ID, we want to update this particular task with this response.data. Otherwise, we want to leave it as it is. So here, after updating, after updating a task in our database, we also want to update it in our UI. So that's why we take our to-dos, then we map them, then we find a to-do which has the same ID that we accept here, and then we update it with our response.data. Otherwise, we leave it as it is. So I think that it's clear. In case of some errors, we can see console log error updating to-do. And here we can provide this error. So now I will take this function and I need to find this icon. So this is our button that we need to use, and here we need to provide this ID. So let's save it. Now, as you can see, we still have read a book. So let's refresh our cluster. So as you can see here, we still have read a book. So now I will edit it to be read a Spanish book, and I will click this button. So it is updated, but we forgot to remove these icons. Okay, so now I will refresh this and we will see an updated version. So as you can see here, we have read a Spanish book. So it is updated in this database, but we forgot to remove this icon. So let's remove this icon. So here we can say set editing to do to be null. Okay, now I will refresh it. So as you can see here, we have read a Spanish book, and here we also have make a presentation. So I want to update it as well. So let's write something like this: make a presentation on finances. I will save it, and as you can see, it is updated both in the UI and in the database. And as you can see, the task that we updated is updated in this database as well. So let's get back to our code. Now let's create a function for deleting a task. So let's say const delete to do, it will be asynchronous, and again we will get an ID, then this try and catch block. Here let's say await Axios, our method, and then we need to use backsticks, API, to-dos, and ID. Okay, then we need to update our UI as well. So we need to filter out a task that we just deleted. So let's say to do. And here, by doing this, we make sure that we show only the fresh data. And when we do it, we look for all to-dos whose ID isn't equal to this ID. So by doing this, we make sure that we show the fresh data. Okay, so let's say console log error deleting to-do. Okay, so let's take this function and we need to find this icon. So here it is. On click, we should pass here ID. So let's see, to-do underscore ID. So I will save it, and now I want to delete this Spanish book, for example. So I will click it and it is gone. So let's check it in our collection. So as you can see, it is gone here as well. Let's try to add some more to-dos. Okay, let's say go to the gym and go shopping. Okay, now we want to mark a task if it is completed or not when we click one of these. So let's try to do it. So let's create a function called toggle to do. Again, here we will have ID and it will be asynchronous. Here, let's say try and catch block. So here, first of all, let's find a to-do according to this ID. So I will say todos.find, and we will look for to-do by its ID. So by doing this, we find a to-do from this to-dos array. So we map all these to-dos, and then we compare each to-dos ID to this incoming ID. And when this is true, this to-do also becomes true. Okay, and now let's say response will be equal to this await, then our method, it will be Axios, then our method. Here we also need to use curly, we also need to use backsticks, API, to-dos, and our ID. Then we should take completed property, and we need to change it to the opposite of to-do.completed. Okay, and then we need to update it in our UI. So we need to say to-dos, to-dos.map. We need to find a to-do with the incoming ID. So if one of these to-dos IDs is equal to this incoming ID, we need to take it and we should change it with response.data. Otherwise, we should leave it as it is. And in case of some error, we need to say error toggling to do, and we can show this error. First of all, we find a to-do which we want to mark as completed, or unmark it and make it to be not completed. So we find it by writing this to do. Then, as you know, we have completed property. So we just change it from previous to the opposite. Okay, and then we just update our UI. That's it. I think it's clear. So let's find a button where we will call this function. So it is here, and here on click we want to say toggle to do, and this to do dot underscore id. Okay, so now I will save it, and now I will click this first to do as it is completed, and as you can see it is marked as completed. So let's open our collection. Here it is still, so here its state is still false, and moreover we don't see these two tasks. So now after refreshing this page, you will see that this completed changed to true, and moreover you will see two more tasks. So let's save it. So let's refresh and see what we have. So as you can see, now it is true and we have these items. Now I will change it. I want it to be false again. So I will click it, and after refreshing it should be false. So as you can see, it is false. Okay, so let's try to make this task to be true, like it is completed, and then let's try to update it. Let's say go to the gym with my friends. For example, let's say I changed my mind and I want to cancel it. It is still like this. Okay, now let's refresh and see what we have. It should be true. So as you can see, it is true. Now let's make it to be true as well. And now let's say go shopping with my friends. I will save it. I want to update it, so let's do it. And now I will refresh this collection. So as you can see, it is marked as true, and the text is go shopping with my friends. But there can be a situation when our task is too long, for example like this, and if we click add task, you can see that it is overflowing. So to deal with it, we can do the following. So first of all, to this div, let's say that overflow will be hidden, and to this span, let's add truncate, something like this. So now as you can see, we see these three dots. We see these three dots when the text is too long, but now our circle shrinked. So to prevent this shrinking, we can find it and say flex shrink to be 0, meaning that it shouldn't be shrinked. So that's it, guys. Now it's time to deploy our application. So for that, let's open our server.js. Now I will stop my terminals. Okay, so in our .env file, we need to know whether we do development or production. So before we were doing development, but now it will be production. So I will change it to production. In our server.js, we need to do the following. So I will paste this code and I will explain everything to you in detail. So here, dir name finds the project folder, and process.env.node.env, it means that code here runs only when deploying, so only in production. This line serves front-end files like CSS, JS from front-end dist when live, and this sends index.html for all page requests, so our React app works properly. So this dist folder will be inside this front-end folder when building. So in production, dist folder will be inside this front-end folder. Now we can't see it, but on production, dist folder will be inside this front-end folder. So by doing this, this serves frontend files from Frontend dist when live. And now we need to make some changes in our package.json. So we need to make some changes in our scripts. So here we can leave this dev as it is because it is fine. And now we can change this to be built. And we need to change it completely. So here let's say npm install. And then npm install, but this time inside frontend folder. So we need to say prefix frontend and npm run build. And again, prefix frontend. So by doing this, exactly this line, it installs dependencies for the whole project, then installs and builds the frontend, creates this folder that I already mentioned earlier. And here we can say start. And here we should say Node Backend server.js. So it will run the backend in production mode. We need both of these because on our rendering service, first it will build it and only then it will start it. So that's why we need these scripts. So let's save it. And as I have said, I think that everything is clear to you here. I did my best. Now let's first of all, let's push our project to GitHub. Okay guys, but before doing that, as you can see, I made some changes to prevent some errors during deploying. So as you can see here, I import path from path. Make sure that you imported it. Then, as you can see, I commented out this app.use course because, as you remember, inside this frontend folder and inside vid.config.js we did this. So we don't really need to use course. Then, as you can see, I created this port variable, and inside .env file I also create a port variable and assigned it to be 5000. Then I used this port variable here, but I don't use it inside this console log because I think that it isn't necessary. And also, as you can see, I deleted node models folder in the root because we don't really need it. And the last thing that you need to pay attention to is that inside frontend folder and inside package.json, you need to make sure that Vue.js plugin React, you need to make sure that it is located inside dependencies and not dev dependencies. So what I did, I took it from dev dependencies and put it inside these dependencies. It is necessary so that deployment will be successful. And the last thing, inside package.json in the root, I downgraded Express version to be like this. Previously it was version 5 or something like that, but I downgraded it so that during deployment everything will be correct. So make sure that you have done all of that, and after that, now we can start pushing our project to GitHub. So let's do it. So let's push our project to GitHub. So I will open my terminal and I will write git init. And as you can see, now we have this folder, but at the same time, we don't want this .environment file to be pushed to GitHub. So we need .gitignore. We can take it from this frontend folder. So let's take it and put it in the root. And now inside this .gitignore, let's write .env. Let's save it. And now, as you can see, it is ignored. That's what we need. And also inside this frontend, node models are also ignored. So let's write git add. So we want to add all these files. Let's say git status. Okay. Now let's say git commit. And our message, let's say initial commit. Okay, now we need to go to GitHub and create a new repository. So here I will say MERN ToDo app. For now, I will make it to be private, and then after publishing this video, it will be public. So let's click this button. Now let's copy this. And this command. So let's press enter. So we have pushed our project to GitHub. So let's make sure that we did it. So now I will refresh this page. And as you can see, here are our files and folders. So now we need to go to render.com. We will use that website to deploy our application and to make it live. So let's go there. So if you haven't signed in there, you need to sign in first, but I have already done it. So I will click dashboard. Here I will click add new web service. Here I will choose GitHub. And here it is. Let's choose it. Okay. So all these fields will be like that, and we need to make changes here. So let's say npm run build, and here we need to say npm run start. Okay, let's choose free version, and here we need to provide environment variables. So let's do it. So let's click this button, and it will take some time. And by the way, in my network access in MongoDB, I allowed access from anywhere. So by doing that, we'll be able to use our application. So as you can see, it says that our project is live. So let's check it. And here we go. These are our tasks. And let's try to add a new task. Let's say make a video. Let's click add task, and it is here. Let's mark it as completed, and let's check it inside our MongoDB collection. So as you can see, it is here. So that's it, guys. Thanks for watching. If you find this video at least a little helpful, hit the like button and subscribe to this channel.